What's the good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. So, looks like we'll officially be having some changes on the coaching staff, at least according to Sportskeeda's Tony Pauline. And, for what it's worth, I don't pay a ton of attention to a lot of reporters and stuff as I'm kind of going through and researching certain things. But I do know Tony Pauline is kind of up and down, hit or miss in terms of accuracy of information. But, I mean, anybody with ears and an eye can tell you, looking at this Jets season, even with Woody Johnson declaring Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas safe for 2024, somebody's head was going to have to roll, right? Historically inept offense, you can't just simply say run it back. There has to be some changes to look forward to in that department. You can't just fully say, well, we didn't have the quarterback we wanted and we tried to build a whole program around, and so it is what it is, right? And I think the Browns' loss capped all of that 100%, right? Another team probably not dealing with the level of issues that we've had, but a fairly significant amount, right? The Browns on their fourth quarterback, they're in the playoff hunt. They actually still have a chance to be number one in the AFC. They've had three major injuries to both their starting tackles and their primary backup, let alone multiple guard issues and stuff like that. They're missing multiple wide receivers now, with Amari Cooper being down with I think the ankle, and Elijah Moore with the concussion, and it's a whole thing. But nonetheless, they found a way, right? Nick Chubb being out, so it is what it is. Excuses need to be put aside. Good coaching is just good coaching, and so this is a lot of reason why there's been discussions about Robert Saleh being fired as well, right? I think he's an amazing glorified defensive coordinator is essentially what he's looking like now, right? And we've been down this road. We've seen it. It's tough thinking back about it every time. Todd Bowles actually didn't do that, well defensively either. But you take a look at, Rex Ryan's ending days and stuff. And so it's not foreign territory for us. The good news, though, is with the changes coming to the coaching staff, one of the primary candidates and guys, and one that a lot of people actually hated as well, right? I've tried to spin this a few different ways, but if I really just sit down, take a look at the product, be honest about things, Keith Carter was always going to be a pretty bad signing, and it starts from a reputation standpoint, right? If you want to take a look at a few different categories, such as reputation, such as player development, and then, of course, just the product on the field, it doesn't look good, right? The biggest detractors when he left the Titans were center Ben Jones and tackle Taylor Lewan, right? Two stalwarts on the offensive line, obviously household names, not just within Tennessee, but of course in the NFL at large. And if you think back, we were looking heavily into bringing a guy like Ben Jones over, and many people wanted to link the fact that we had Keith Carter originally, but you have these two guys that vehemently seem like they hate Keith Carter, let alone he's not really respected in NFL circles at large, right? And so you can honestly look at him and say, well, we could have had Ben Jones early. Maybe that was a reason that didn't happen. We still made out well, right? Connor McGovern came back on a ridiculously cheap contract. But that could have been a major factor for us. So it's taking a look at things when we originally signed him and knowing that information, that's already a red flag, right? But you hear the labels attached to how he left Tennessee ultimately, and it unceremonious, unharmonious, and then just overall, if you're a good coach and you just ended up in a bad situation, teams would flock to come and get you, right? And as far as I know, I think we scooped Keith Carter up pretty quickly. I don't think he really interviewed with anybody else. And so I seen when I was digging through this that a lot of people looked at that signing and called it a death wish for Robert Saleh as he was rebuilding his offensive line. And if it starts in the trenches, you should really do your due diligence to make sure you have the absolute best coach that you can have. And right now it's looking like we downgraded. You take a look at the product on the field. What have we done this year so far through, 16 games now? The New York Jets have surrendered the fifth highest sack rate, 9.78% in the NFL. We've allowed the third most sacks per game at 3.9, almost a full 4. And our run block grade ranks as 28th, and to go along with that, we have 175 pressures allowed through 15 games, which is 12 more than any other team in football, right? And you're talking about having some standout performances from guys like Joe Tippmann, where for 4 or 5 games, and it's not in a stretch, but at least for 4 or 5 games in the season, he hasn't allowed a single pressure. I think Laken Tomlinson had 1 or 2, but largely, right? You if you would tack on an extra 2 or 3, a realistic number for what somebody may give up during a game, and you could easily take a look at this being closer to 185, 190, right? And to pair that into player development, the only saving grace that you can give a guy like Keith Carter is that there's been a ridiculous amount of injuries once again. And Robert Salas talked about us revamping how we intend to approach the offseason, which also goes into Keith Carter and what we've heard about practice habits and him basically running his guys into the ground. But from a player development standpoint, 2 of the most consistent people to remain on the offensive line, Laken Tomlinson, Mekhi Becton. Both of these guys have definitely downgraded from what we've seen in years prior, right? Laken Tomlinson leads all guards with 48 pressures allowed. No other guard has more than 41. And then Mekhi Becton leads all offensive tackles, and I think he's in the 11 to 12 range, minus whatever may have happened versus the Browns, where I think he gave up another 3 or 4. And he's first in penalties in the league, I believe, with somewhere around the 13 to 14 range. And again, that may be slightly higher now with the Browns game going on. Outside of that, Joe Tippmann has looked like himself, but it's looked like the exception to the rule. Obviously, you've had a lot more change at right guard and right tackle with Billy Turner and Chris Hansen coming in and Max Mitchell. And we're digging deep. There's going to be names out there that people wouldn't ever recognize, and we wouldn't expect you to, right? We basically had to grab some guys off the street here, but largely, we're probably going to lose out on Mekhi Becton in a year where we've seen him perform his absolute worst, worse than he has as a rookie. Laken Tomlinson was already a failed signing prior to Keith Carter coming, but he's looked even worse than what we saw before. And so at this point, there's nothing to save a man like Keith Carter. So what I would like to see, at least moving forward, though, is we need to take a serious look at some of these high-performing schools in college, right? Iowa State, Notre Dame, for example, see if we can maybe pry somebody off of that roster. If not, I'll have to do some research on who may shake loose on NFL rosters. We talked about one already that had a Packers background, but I don't even really have a question for you guys. I'm assuming we're all going to be ecstatic about this, and hopefully it happens the minutes after we finish our game versus the Patriots, which is killing me because now I'm starting to feel like we're going to lose that game. And I don't care about draft position. I really would like to see Bill Belichick, if he actually does get fired or quits, whatever, the politics end up looking like there. I would love to see him end his tenure with the loss to the Jets. But even that is starting to leave a sour taste in my mouth. So nonetheless, let me know thoughts that you guys have. Actually, I do have a question. If you guys have stuck around this long, appreciate it. Let me know if you guys do have some names that would interest you as becoming our new offensive line coach again. I'll probably do some research into giving you guys like a top 5 list for coaches I'd like to see at that position or something. But yeah, otherwise, I'll catch you guys again. Peace.